Hi, I'm Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. My guest today is Daniela Palma. Daniela has a master's degree in environmental studies from York University. We will be discussing Daniela's master thesis on creating a sustainable coffee cup culture. It's a pleasure to have you on my show, Daniela.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Dobson.
Daniela, you are passionate about protecting the natural environment. Please share your journey pursuing an environmental career.
Thanks for the question. From an early age, my parents instilled in me a deep appreciation for the natural environment. And so I think it's just kind of been an innate part of my character since I was very young. When I went to school to pursue my undergrad, and that was I took English, did my English honors. One of my elective courses was in theories of dinosaur extinction, and I remember that course vividly. Um, it was really interesting how when the professor talked about the sixth mass extinction, or the Anthropocene extinction, in other words, as like the human-led extinction, is like generated by mass production and mass consumption, and it really intrigued me and stuck with me since I finished my undergrad. Then from there, I was after school, I was working and doing some park cleanup initiatives on the side to clean up natural areas, green spaces, parks, ravines, that sort of thing. And I was also volunteering for environmental organizations and grassroots kind of initiatives. From there, I was really interested. I realized that like that's where my passion is pursuing a career in the environmental field. Previously, I was like in a completely different industry, like banking and finance. So I was like, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So I was like, I went back to school to pursue my master in environmental studies. I wanted to have a bigger impact, address like the root causes of waste. So that's why I returned to school, and I'm here now, and I'm so happy to have my master's in environmental studies.
Excellent. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your story, Daniela.
Yeah.
For your master's research, you studied sustainable coffee cup culture. Can you tell us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, thank you for the question. My research question focused on how Toronto can create a sustainable coffee cup culture. Now, within that, it incorporated themes such as waste management of paper cups, policies of government and coffee retailers, preventing coffee cup waste during and post pandemics, and making it applicable not just to COVID, but to future pandemics as well. And then also how best to support sustainability in Toronto. And with that, I conducted a case study on specifically this issue within Toronto. So I looked at Toronto litter audit, and within their 2022 litter audit, it showed that coffee cup hot beverage paper cups was in the top 12 litter items. And compared to the 2020 litter audit, there was a 38.5% increase in paper cup litter. And then also in like some data I retrieved from the city of Toronto, I calculated that the total weight of hot beverage paper cups in single family and multifamily households equates to approximately 2,288 tons per year of hot beverage paper cups. So it's a significant impact. There's issues around hot beverage paper cups because they're not recyclable, and there have been numerous like initiatives and research, all kinds of things conducted on this topic and trying to solve the problem. I don't think anything think it's really made a dent in that. But paper cups specifically, so people often ask me why paper cups, like why coffee cups, right? And that's a good question. I mean, paper cups are an indispensable and ubiquitous product in consumer culture. However, the rapid proliferation of paper cup waste is a critical sustainability issue because of the reasons I just explained around recycling, the issues around recycling because they're not easily recyclable. And with consumer culture, there is like excessive production and consumption, overconsumption, as I already explained, around disposable items like coffee cups. So it's a critical issue that needs to be targeted, which indirectly also affects like issues such as climate change and biodiversity loss, because there's all kinds of extraction for creating paper cups. There's tons of water used, so it's a very intensive kind of process just to create the cups, and then only to be used for a short time until they're thrown away, so in the garbage.
I'm assuming that you took this project also because you love coffee.
So of course, yes, I love coffee, but I'm kind of like a specialty kind of coffee person. Like I don't frequent Starbucks or Tim Hortons. I'm more for supporting independent indie kind of cafes in Toronto, and I love exploring cafes. I love exploring different places to eat and dine in. And so also I wanted to mention another thing about my research is that like I chose Toronto specifically as my case study because it's an essential urban center in North America. Also, it's the most populous city in Canada. So as a lead, it's kind of Toronto's kind of like a leader in sustainable and innovative ideas. And it can have a strong influence over other cities worldwide. And again, the research gap is important because there is a paucity of research examining what I do. So the responsibility of consumers, businesses, and government in solving this problem. Like everybody has a part to play, and then specifically on the issue on the pandemics, these are things that make my research novel, because like I started this project in the midst of the pandemic, but so I gathered a lot of my data in the midst of in 2022 in the pandemic, but this can extend to other pandemics in the future, other potential pandemics. These attitudes and behavior that are really important for this research and how to influence that.
Do you think that pandemic has accelerated the more waste, like especially coffee cup?
Yeah, for sure. It has led to an increase in disposable items, because what happens is whenever there's like a health crisis or a pandemic, it's often that health and safety gets prioritized at the expense of the environment. And so we're using more disposable items. We're using we're not thinking about like sustainability, preventing waste. We're thinking about what's the safest thing to do when safety is an issue.
So, Daniela, can you share how did you conduct your research?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I conducted my research again. I gathered my data in 2022 during the pandemic, and it involved a consumer survey of Toronto residents, and it was random sampling. So I wanted to make sure it was representative of the general population of City of Toronto. Then I also incorporated in-depth interviews with 2 coffee retailers and 1 official from the Toronto municipal government. So there was that, and then what I did, it's a mixed methods approach. So there's
Okay.
quantitative data that I gathered through closed-ended questions. There's
Okay.
and then from that I quantified. I showed that data in, for example, charts in my paper.
Yeah.
And then I also turned some qualitative data into quantitative metrics through coding.
Okay.
And that shows kind of like the frequency of codes, and I kind of ranked them based on the most popular codes.
Okay.
I also like the qualitative data is particularly interesting because it allowed my research participants to explain whatever they wanted and like kind of go in depth on they were open-ended questions. So talk about whatever they wanted and provide like unique answers. And through the qualitative data, I conducted multiple rounds of coding. Then categorize these codes into themes. So
okay, nice.
And with these different data sets, I triangulated. So like the interviews and the survey, I triangulated this data, these different data collection methods, because it allowed to like increase the credibility and validity of the findings, because by validating certain things or maybe contradicting something else, depending on what it was. And so they kind of corroborate each other in a way, and it provides more credibility that way in my research. And so and that was like that's my methodology at like a more of a high level. There's more details to that once people read my paper.
How did you describe your experience conducting the research from method perspective? Overall experience.
Oh yeah. I that was like a really interesting part of this research for me. Was seeing how people responded in a way that maybe I didn't expect, and that was often. Like so gathering the data was actually starting with the recruitment. That was a challenge, finding amenable interview participants. But I did end up finding like 2 participants from coffee retailers that provided really interesting data, and they were great discussions, and I think the findings surprised me in many ways, both consumers and from the interviews. And I think that's another unique part of my research. I mean, the thing with this research is that participants they're being honest, and I like that honesty and directness in the responses, particularly from the consumers. So it was great.
So I want to ask you my next question, Daniela. So what did you learn from your study?
What did I learn? I learned, there was many critical learnings from this research. So at a high level, because like there's different details, it could take a long time to explain everything, but at a high level, there were some really significant findings. First thing was the attitudes and of the participants. So I found through this research that sustainability was often equated with recycling and composting. And the problem with that is that sustainability, so recycling and composting kind of has to do with a lot with the circular economy. So, but recycling and composting don't necessarily mean that things will be sustainable. So just because so sustainability does not equal recycling and composting. It's like a lot of consumers and businesses
Yeah.
promote or want or encourage
Yeah.
recycling and composting, and
Yeah.
that's not necessarily the way to go. There
Mhm.
are social, economic, and
Mhm.
environmental
Yeah.
impacts, significant impacts to pursuing the recycling and composting of these cups. And I found that, for example, it's very expensive to recycle paper cups, and composting the paper cups is just not feasible, plain and simple. So and often the consumers are influenced by the businesses. So businesses put encouraging this kind of behavior, or saying, "Oh, we recycle the cups." That gives consumers the wrong impression that it's feasible, and it's not up to the businesses whether something is recyclable or not. It's up to the municipality and municipality that's managing that waste. So that's an important finding. And then another important finding was the issue of incentives. So a key finding was that the discount incentive that we've been seeing around for years and years does not automatically equal behavior change. In fact, consumers were less influenced by an incentive, regardless of the value of the discount. They were less influenced by that, as opposed to just having the convenience of being able to use a reusable cup. Like they want it, they don't want it to be challenging. They want it to be convenient and like limited barriers to be able to access that. And so there's that as well. It's it's not as easy, and like with the discount, like we've seen very, very limited use of reusable cups since the discount's been implemented. Like I'm talking 2 to 4%. And so that's 2 to 4% use of reusable cups. And so it's looking at that alternatives to a discount incentive. That's important. Also disposal, as I said, like consumers believe that these paper cups should be recyclable, and so it's like kind of like there's improper disposal of paper cups by consumers. So consumers are not even placing many consumers are not currently disposing of the cups properly. So how are you going to recycle the cups, and a significant amount of cups, if they're not even being properly sorted in the first place? That's an issue. Inconsistent waste management approaches by across jurisdictions, that increases confusion for consumers in how to recycle what goes where. Like something in that's not recyclable in Toronto maybe is recyclable in Pickering or another municipality. There's no consistency between the municipalities in terms of like waste management, right? And recycling, proper recycling practices. And alignment, like waste prevention in particular, was another key area. So alignment and a common vision are important for implementing and creating a sustainable coffee cup culture. Alignment between government, businesses, consumers, and then encouraging reusable cups. There's multiple ways that I talk about, that I discuss in my paper on how to actually encourage reusable cups. One of them is strengthening the waste prevention infrastructure, not the waste management infrastructure, because we want to reduce and prevent that waste. We don't want to continue producing paper cups and using them. So it's like that's the waste prevention infrastructure, strengthening that, important. Another way of encouraging reusable cups is by providing that convenience to consumers. Convenience was identified in my research as the most common, most important factor for consumers and being able to use reusable cups.
Yeah.
Specifically, they mentioned that unplanned purchases were an issue. So like people going out and grabbing a coffee, kind of like impromptu, it's not planned. So where you're taking your cup, your reusable cup with you when you go out.
Yeah.
It's people kind of just decide to purchase on a whim, and there's no like infrastructure or like program set up to kind of support that, to make it convenient for people. And then also, as a way of encouraging reusable cups, because more consumers are interested in sustainability, and it's becoming a more of a hot topic for people. If businesses adopt these sustainable practices and reduce and prevent their waste and really focus on that, it could boost their revenue, and it's a competitive advantage for the businesses that take on these initiatives, that adopt these practices. So it's beneficial to the businesses as well. But also, I just want to mention one important point for in terms of the policy sphere for government. Government mentioned, so my participant from the Toronto Municipal Government mentioned about a bylaw that they're going to be, that they were implementing at the time, and now it's implemented. So it was implemented in March. So but if you have this policy and you're not enforcing it, it's just a do nothing policy. So you have to actually, you have to actually enforce it and make sure people are adhering to these policies. And I found that the participant from the city of Toronto is kind of like a little bit too laid back in their in their enforcement. I didn't feel like there was a strong kind of like wanting to actually I think not having a bad, like a negative impact on consumers and businesses is important, but you have to kind of balance that with the goal here, which is reducing and preventing that. So if you're going to be too lenient there, it's not going to work. So policy has to be enforced in a way to a certain extent without having a negative impact. But there it has to, you have a policy there, you have to enforce it and make sure people are adhering. Otherwise society won't take it seriously. And there won't be any change.
Lots of things you learned in your research. That was very interesting. I want to ask you, Daniela, I know you already talked about a little bit of practical application of research. So what are some of the practical implications of your research?
So there's a few. My research has social, environmental, and economic benefits to government, to businesses, consumers, and Toronto as a whole. And I would say, so addressing each kind of sphere there, the social, there's education, creating more awareness among consumers, but also ensuring that businesses are training their staff properly, right? On how to accept reusable cups. There's ensuring that health and safety is a priority. Inclusivity is a priority. Equity is a priority as well. Because I found that, interestingly, there was also there were people from the marginalized community who responded and provided some insightful comments on how it wasn't accessible to them to be able to use reusable cups. And so ensuring that that's in place. Equity is important for consumers, and it has to be specifically tailored to these communities. Also environmentally, environmental protection. So that's obviously, if we reduce and prevent this kind of waste, environmental protection is just going to happen as a result. That includes protecting biodiversity, because we're not extracting as many natural resources. Also, we're not contributing to kind of the negative greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, because we're reducing waste, and through that we're reducing emissions in landfills. And then also having this kind of reusable cup programs in place, that helps to solve these issues around these waste issues that we're currently seeing with accumulation of waste in landfills and burning and incineration, that sort of thing. So having this, and then also economically, there's cost savings. Like I said, waste management of these paper cups, you reduce that, you prevent that waste, automatically you're saving money on for example, tipping charges, businesses saving money on that, and consumers saving money on their waste accumulation, and governments saving on their waste management costs. And economically also, if the businesses are being accountable for their waste, then that leads to cost savings as well. So but they have to be accountable, and finding it was that generally they felt that the paper cup waste was not their responsibility. So but they're the ones that are distributing the paper cups. So so we have to look at that is important, and just innovation, as I said, innovation, these businesses that innovate and adopt sustainable practices, they're boosting their competitive advantage. And of course, through my research, there's also practical implications for future research on the topic.
So yeah, just to build up on your future research, what is your advice for future research on this topic?
So there were 3 limitations to my research. I did not look at the demographics of the survey participants. I decided not to collect demographics. Another limitation was I had a small interview sample size, because, as I said, it was difficult finding amenable participants. Then a third limitation was considerations of extended producer responsibility, and that is just this is a new policy that's being implemented. We're kind of like transitioning towards EPR in Ontario. They already have it in BC, actually, but it's just making producers responsible for the end of life of products. So I decided not to cover EPR because due to the logistical kind of complexity, that in itself, EPR could be a whole topic on its own, right? And studying this topic. So so any future research can look at these kinds of the limitations, can kind of incorporate any of or add to the topic, and incorporate these kinds of limitations that I could not, they were outside the purview of my research as well. Like, I thought one particular topic that would be interesting to study in this area would be the perspectives of marginalized communities, and how this issue affects them specifically, and just like interviewing them only, and getting their take on incentives, their situational barriers, that sort of thing.
Daniela, now you have completed your master's in environmental studies. What is next for you?
Well, I am always looking for opportunities to advance my career. I feel that with my Master in Environmental Studies now, it really opens doors for me and in terms of careers and like networking. And I'm just really excited at the opportunities ahead of me and where it will lead me. Both my professional and my educational experience have really been beneficial and helped me. I've learned so much, and I networking, meeting new people in the field. It's all been part of advancing, my knowledge, my career, and specifically like with my current position, like I work at Diabetes Canada. We recycle and repurpose textiles that are donated by the community. And through that, I'm able to collaborate with government and corporate stakeholders from all across Canada. And that, I feel like that just provides me with so much networking opportunities. So I'm really excited, and I'm interested in career-wise, I'm interested in working for government or businesses or a business to advise on sustainability and waste prevention. I have a 9-year-old beagle named Marley, and so she is like an integral part of why I got into, like, why I decided to go back to school, why I really started these park cleanup initiatives. She got me out of the house. I was always having to, she has a puppy. She's a beagle, so she's so much energy. She's so friendly and lovable, and she got me out of the house, walking, exercising. So she's had numerous benefits to me, just as a friend, as a comfort, and providing that, relief when I needed to get away from my desk for a few minutes or take time for myself. She's always been a great companion for me, and yeah, she's like I said, she's why I pursued my environmental. She got me healthier, and why I'm able to pursue my passion here in environmental studies and in the field here.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, Daniela, and best wishes.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.